All right, I am so excited. I'm here with Jazmine Gittens, and she is from Baltimore City, Maryland.
Yes.
She was one of my students, but most importantly, I'm just really thrilled to see how much you have grown, how you've excelled and gone way above and beyond what I can ever imagine. So thank you for jumping on this call real quick and talking to us.
Absolutely. I'm thrilled to be here. I'm super grateful for the time that we had together, and same like you. I didn't imagine I would be here either, but this was my vision, so it came true.
Well, what I love is, when we started, I think you had one kid, now you have two.
Yes.
And you wanted to figure out how to do this part-time from home because you wanted to be around with your kids and
Absolutely.
son at the time. You have
Yep.
two boys, right?
Yep. I have two boys. So when we first started, I just had my son. Yeah. So I had just had my son, and I was actually laid off from my 9 to 5 job when I told them I was 4 months pregnant. I told them I was pregnant, and I got laid off 3 days later. So yeah, crazy. So, but hindsight 2020, that was like the best. That was the best thing that could have happened. So I had actually kind of even dabbled in like wholesaling like years before, but didn't really take it seriously. But at this point it was like, all right, like now I have to go all in. I didn't want to go back to work. Like I wanted to spend time with my son, with my husband, and just work from home if I could, and find something that was going to create like a significant income. You know what I mean? So, so that's when I, made the commitment to wholesaling.
Well, I know that you have a thirst for knowledge. You're always trying to learn. I remember you were learning all sorts of different acquisition techniques and
Yes.
understanding pay-per-click and social media and cold calling. And I think you've started to focus on one major area, which is cold calling a lot right now.
Yes. So we tested and tried several different marketing methods, all of which work, right? So everything works. It wasn't that it wasn't working. It was just being more strategic about our what worked best, right? What was converting the highest for us, making sure that our returns, we were having the best possible returns. So that was the kind of the decision. Where we just said, look, cold calling is getting us the most conversions and the least amount of like cost per closed deal as well. So let's just focus on that.
What type of KPIs are you seeing? I think you made a post on social media. I think it was like 2,000 calls.
Yep, 2,000 calls to get one deal.
Yeah.
And that was, when we actually had started our mentorship, right? I remember I was like making calls, and you were, pushing me on, keep going. And I was trying to find like that motivation to keep going when I wasn't getting the results. And now that I've been doing this for so long, I know like doing 50 calls, doing 100 calls, that's not going to generate, usually you might get a deal sometimes, right? But typically speaking, over like long spans of time, you're not going to get a deal in that time, in that amount of calls. So so I realized through all the calls we made, all the deals we made, that 2,000 calls is what generates us a deal, not a lead, but an actual deal.
I love that KPI. That's a great KPI to remember, because there's a lot of people just getting started, trying to figure this out, and maybe they spent some money on a list, they traced it, they even got like a dialer like Mojo or something, and they hit like 1,200 calls, and this isn't working, and I'm done. I don't know, and they're ready to throw in the towel. I mean, what would you say?
Yeah, and that's exactly, I mean, that's kind of where I was at one point too, right? So I totally get it. And I have a lot of people that reach out to me, and they're interested in the same thing, like, how do you stay motivated? I made 100, I made 50, I made 500 calls, and I'm like, it's not enough. Like, keep going, keep pushing, like until you've at least hit that 2,000 mark. Then you want to say, okay, maybe I need to switch something up. But usually it's nothing wrong. People are like, what am I saying wrong? Or, am I not calling the right list? Usually it's none of that. It's typically you just haven't made enough calls. So just, I think just having that like number there just really helped me be able to like, be laser shutter-eyed and just go for it and say, okay, I haven't even made 2,000 yet. So what am I talking about?
Like 4,000 or 5,000, then you're like, hey, maybe I got a bad list. Or
right. Exactly. Yeah. Yep.
So how's business looking for you now?
Business is still going well. So since you and I have had our mentorship, at that point, I was like, newer and just kind of getting started. So since then I'm virtually wholesaling now. So I'm in 4 different markets. We're in Maryland, North Carolina, New Jersey, and Pennsylvania.
Oh, awesome. That's great.
Thank you. So business is still going well. Only thing that has shifted a bit for us is just some of our buyers. So some of our buyers are a little bit more conservative, and they might want the deals to be a little bit stronger, which is not a problem. That just means that we have to get strong deals. We have to talk with the owners and inform them of the situation. Things have changed, and they're quite understanding.
Yeah, there's been a little shift. Some of my buyers I know that were okay with taking properties that had tenants or something. Now they or the homeowner was still in there for a little bit. Now they just kind of want to get the keys at closing.
Right. Right. Exactly. So I, and one of my things I say is like, don't be discouraged, be creative. Right. So it's okay that they're asking for different things now. It's okay. So now I'm just finding out what their new criteria is and making sure that I deliver on that.
So, you have a lot of experience now. It's been a couple of years.
Yes.
And you've had some deals under your belt. You've got experience. But there's a lot of people that are in the same shoes you were in just right when you were getting started.
Yeah.
A lot of people, they're spending some money now. They're taking a leap of faith.
Yeah.
And what happens a lot of times, we kind of get in this mindset of like, oh, I need to get a deal. I need to get a deal. Or I'm gonna, I need to get that deal. They need it so bad, or they're focused on what their needs are, and they're not really, they're worried about their investment. They're worried about their time, not getting results yet.
Yep.
Any advice for that?
Absolutely. So my advice will be directly from our mentorship. So 2 key things that I took away from mentoring with you. One was altruism. So you introduced the word altruism to me, which was like focusing on other people's needs, right? So being more in a space of trying to provide a service, like how many people can I serve? And by doing that, by having that mental shift from how much money can I make to how many people can I serve, really, really impacted my business in a huge way. And people ask me today, like, Jasmine, what sets you apart? How are you consistently getting deals? And I'm telling them, like, one of our key things is that we look like I'm looking for a way that I can actually help and add value to the homeowners, right? So just a quick little example. We recently had a homeowner. She was like an elderly lady, and she was moving from New Jersey to Georgia. And she has like a bunch of dolls, like she collects dolls. So she was trying to figure out how she was going to get all her dolls from New Jersey to Georgia. And she had mentioned pods. So I said, I left her house. I called pods. I got a quote for her to move her stuff. And I gave her a call. Hey, Brenda, this is how much it's going to cost. She was so grateful for me calling. We got the deal. Like, she was on the fence at first. As soon as I gave her that, boom, we got the deal, and now we're rolling forward. And she actually even wanted to, I didn't do it, but she was like, we can actually get the price. She was willing. She wanted to give me more money. I was like, what? But I don't know like what was going on, but I was like, no, Brenda, we're good. We're selling this price.
No one does that extra step a lot of times.
Yeah. And that literally was a huge thing. And the second thing that I got directly from our mentoring was following up. Like, I remember when we first got on and I showed you my podio and I had like red, like meaning that I had a whole bunch of follow-ups that I had not called back. And, sometimes you get nervous of that follow-up. Like, what am I going to say to them? They're just going to say no again. Things like that. Like, I don't want them to like, you have all of these weird thoughts, right? But so you told me for one of our weeks, just don't call any more new leads. Focus on just your follow-ups. The follow-up is in the money, or the money is in the follow-up. So I just did my follow-ups, and that week I got several deals. I think I got 2 or 3 deals just in that 1 week. So
that's awesome.
Yeah. So just really staying consistent.
Those are both really good pieces of advice, because especially when we're starting out, it is scary. We put out money, we put out time. We're not having the results yet. Maybe we don't have 2,000 calls in yet. Maybe we're at 1,500 or something.
Right.
And we're like, when is the results going to happen?
Yeah. You got to just literally put your head down and keep going, and really just be consistent. Like that's super, super key, is just consistency.
That was one of the things you were really good at, by the way.
Thank you.
Was your work ethic and your consistency. Super good work ethic, super good consistency. You scheduled time, even though you're a stay-at-home mom, you got to get this napping, this and that.
Yeah.
You figured out what times I can call.
Yes.
And you stuck to that schedule.
Yeah, 10 to 1. 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. was my time to make my calls. And I closed the door, and whatever was going on, sometimes even my son would be banging on the door, and I'm like, look, I got to make my calls. But, in the end, it definitely worked. And now I'm at the point where I don't have to make those calls. Now I have a team making those calls for me. But it took me years of doing that grind before I was able to get to this point.
How many hours a day do you recommend someone to call? Because, it probably can get, tiresome sometimes, right?
Yeah. So I would say like at least 3 hours. I try to do 3 hours a day, right? So I would say 3 to 4 hours a day, but really 3 is kind of that nice sweet spot where you don't get burnt out. You know what I mean? Because after so many hours, sometimes you can kind of start getting burnt out. And you can maintain like high level when you're making your calls. So 3 hours was my key spot.
One of the things too about you that I've always admired is you always seem to have like a very optimistic, positive attitude.
Yeah.
How do you maintain that?
I don't know. I think it's more like I know what my vision is, right? So I'm really I get stuck on it. Sometimes it's not the best. Like sometimes you can just but I'm like, so, I believe it so much. So I'm just like, all right, we're taking a step at a time. We're taking a step at a time. And then once you've done that for long enough and you get the result and you're like, okay, this is what it was all for. And now you have that, like the energy to do it again. You know what I mean? I think that's also another key is like that rinse and repeat. Because I actually had that problem in the beginning. Like my first check, I got my check and I'm like, I could sit back and, relax for a little bit. Because I had never gotten a check like that, right? So, no, you just keep going. So consistency.
Yeah, sometimes it's hard because you're like, oh yeah, one of Sean's earlier podcasts was talking about a guy in Phoenix that was inconsistent. He'd get some deals and then stop, get some deals. Well, he was talking about me. That was the guy.
Wow.
So I was like, yeah, I learned how like it's stressful because, when it's good, it's great, right? It's like feast and famine. And then you're like, you got to start back over. Where if you just have that consistency and scale, you have that steady growth.
Absolutely.
Difference.
Absolutely. It makes a huge difference. It really does.
Any other advice you'd have for someone that's just getting going?
I think honestly, get started. Like I think that is just like it's just that simple, right? So sometimes we get into this big idea of like, what's the perfect this and the perfect that, and what's the perfect this, and it's like, drop all those ideas of like what's perfect. You're not gonna find out what's perfect until you actually get started. You know what I mean? Because what's perfect for me may be a little tweak different from what's perfect for you, and vice versa, right? So once you actually get started and you can say, okay, this makes sense for me, or this doesn't, or whatever, now you can create your perfect system. I couldn't create this system until I got started.
That's excellent advice, because I've seen, we do a lot of group coaching with beginning students and stuff, and so a lot of them are designing their business cards or getting their Carrot website perfect and stuff. And I'm like, focus on revenue generating activities.
Yes, absolutely.
Bring money in,
Yep. And my second like piece of advice would be like, get like a mentor like yourself. Like I think that's super, super key. in trying to avoid, like if you're looking and thinking about this whole like perfection, right? So trying to avoid certain things that you don't necessarily have to go through yourself. You know what I mean? So I think having a mentor was a huge advantage.
I'm huge on that for myself. Yeah, I still do. I still learn from other business coaches.
Me too.
I invest in myself because I feel like I'm paying for speed. I feel like I'm paying to get a little bit farther ahead and not have all the bumps and bruises that I probably will end up having.
Absolutely. I'm just the same. Like my husband jokes with me sometimes. He's like, I think that you're like a mentor junkie. You're always.
Yeah,
but we get great results though, you know? Yeah. So it's working.
Sometimes like, you know, one book, one podcast, one event, one webinar, if you get a golden nugget from that and it helps you and that can make more money than you invested on that $200 program or something.
Absolutely.
Jasmine, I appreciate you jumping on here.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much.
It was my pleasure. Thank you so much, Brandon. I really appreciate it.
4 areas now? You're in 4 areas?
Yes.
Woo, that's awesome. That's awesome. Things I want to take away is don't stop. You need at least 2,000 calls to get a deal.
Yes.
Altruism, focusing on others. Follow up. Pay for speed or figure out a way to have someone that cares, mentors you. I always joke around with some of my students. I said, I'm here to either pat you on the back and celebrate the wins or kick you in the butt.
Yeah. I love it. I love it.
So much for being on here. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely, Brandon. Thank you for having me. I appreciate everything.